Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and today we have another legal mindset video. This is following more of VShojo's basically downfall in real time. Although in this case, it's not real time. I'm like a week late because I just have so many other random things going on. So, yeah, you guys can tell me what else is missing from this. I do know for the fact that the company is basically filing for bankruptcy. It's going to be a bit of a problem for a lot of the VTubers because they were all independent contractors, and independent contractors a lot of times are fucking screwed when a company goes out of business. Everyone else gets paid before them in most cases. There are a few exceptions, which some of these guys might fall under partial repayment for, but it will all depend on if they can get enough basically blood from a stone, money-wise, from this company, because they were obviously hemorrhaging money since they were using charity funds to pay for shit. And I guess the CEO was dumb enough to go out and tweet saying that he actually was aware that they misappropriated the funds. Yeah, that was smart. Apparently there's a video on that, so we'll check that out. If you haven't seen this video for some reason, you should watch it on Legal Mindset's channel, not mine. If you've seen it before or a bunch of times, then you're here for me for some reason. All right, let's take a look. I do like that intro. I don't know why. I used to do intros on my channel, but...
The bankruptcy of Vishojo is inevitable.
No shit.
At this point, all signs are pointing to insolvencies.
I knew that from the first video. Once she wasn't getting paid anything, I was like, there's either something crazy going on in the background where she's basically telling everyone that she's not getting paid and she is, and she's lying, or more likely, based off of what everyone else has been saying for like the last year or so, VShojo wasn't paying anyone.
So today we're going to go over the bankruptcy process and exactly what it's going to look like and how it's going to affect VShojo. Of course, this is the Legal Minds, where we teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and this is a fast facts, quick and dirty version of the legal education and news that gets best to you as quickly as possible. So smash a like and leave a comment if you like the fast facts versions. Now, getting into this, we've been covering the breakup of VShojo, as has happened and been covered by many channels. But one thing that I've said quickly, and I think I was probably the first person to point this out, is that bankruptcy is the way that this is going to wind up.
That's bullshit. I pointed that out too, but my channel's way too fucking small. So that doesn't matter. But his channel's huge, so it probably was one of the main ones too. And he probably posted his video before mine. But yeah, no, it was obvious.
Seeing things play out as people are speaking out, it's very clear, looking at the roster, looking at the fact that there's literally no talent left. This is
zero.
The list as of today. All of the red people are confirmed.
Oh, okay. I mean, there's a couple people still technically on there, but so no, that's all 2023 stuff. So they were done ages ago. Never mind.
To have left. So Zentraya, Iron Mouse, Project Melody, Hime, K-Song.
I still think all these people are just AI. Yeah. And they just have to prove to me that they're human.
Haruka, Henya, Giga, Kuro, Matara, Michi, everybody here. Hestia, Yutori, Okamoto, Amelie. Everybody is essentially out. Then we've got people that left earlier, like Vebe, Silverbill.
Yeah, but they also, like, I've seen all over the news though that they said they were closing down and stopping all operations. So it's not just that. So
and
now, to be fair, this video may have come out before they made that announcement. That's a total possibility. A lot of this stuff is happening relatively quickly, and I keep seeing stuff in the news, but the problem is I don't have time to come and record for it. I do have some time right now, which is great, but so my information might be ahead of schedule for certain things.
And then Fruit is the only one that's left that even is, not made an official announcement, but she's removed VShojo from her profile. So she's expected to leave. So at this point, they have absolutely no profit generation. There is no way that there's any income coming in.
Right. And they've been hemorrhaging money since they ran through that first 11 million.
And at that point, for any company, you are insolvent. If you were already having problems,
I mean, unless that $11 million you invested into some incredibly risky fucking crypto that somehow is spiking right now, you're fucked.
all of your creators were at their maximum revenue generation and you still were not profitable, there's no way to be profitable with no revenue coming in. It's a simple 1 + 1.
Which is crazy because some of the talent that they had underneath them had to be raking in tons of money. But I think part of the problem was they weren't taking like a percentage of what their like they had like the rights to certain like sales for merchandise and whatnot, but they weren't taking like a percentage of any of their initial was it VTuber income, which like nice, sure, but from like a monetary standpoint, you should even take like 1 or 2% or something like that because how the hell were they planning on ever generating money? I just don't understand from a business standpoint. That sounds awful.
And there really is no other way around that. Now, we're also seeing the scope of this debt. And even as of a while ago, this is not even totally current, but this is very recent here in 2025.
Right. Yeah, those older checks that may help. Yeah, so I think their loan though was that initial $11 million investment. So they owed probably still owed around probably the full amount of $11 million, and they just did not have the money at all.
You're seeing that they are about $2 million deep.
Well, no, it's not even just $2 million deep. That's $2 million for the current what they owe talents. So that's what they owed, Iron Mouse and everyone else. And they probably had $2 million for what they owed on the loans for the moment, not what they owed total. They probably owed that still $11 million plus
in loans,
almost,
and in what more. They owed a talent. $2 million.
I bet you it was way more than that. It's probably closer to 13.
There's no digging out of that. There's no going in and asking for another loan to bail them out when they've got no one working for them. This is leading to insolvency. And what happens in insolvency? Well, naturally, it would be a bankruptcy. That is the natural thing for a company to do.
Right. And so what you do is you end up selling all your shit, or there's a bunch of different types of bankruptcy. Chapter 11's, the one they're probably going to go through, but maybe it's a little different for for how VShojo is structured. But the biggest thing is, even if they sell every single piece of equipment, and that's assuming not all these people weren't just working from home, then all the employees are going to get paid first. A lot of the other bills and the outstanding debt's going to get paid first, but the talent owed money may not be paid out directly the same way because they're all independent contractors. And that's kind of how it works for like independent contractors on the whole get fucking screwed during the bankruptcy.
Particularly when they are buried by claims, when they're going to be buried by lawsuits, when they're going to be buried by obligations and unpaid wages. You're going to have to turn to bankruptcy. So what does the bankruptcy process actually look like? Many people are not familiar with it or only know it in a
well, there's a bunch of different types too.
Personal context. We're going to talk about it in a corporate context today.
Yeah, corporate's
so
definitely different.
What looks like is
okay. Here we go. So I'm more aware of Chapter 11, and they can't file for Chapter 11 because there's no fucking way they can recover. Okay. So like a lot of restaurants, for instance, file for Chapter 11. A lot of bigger like computer type companies file for Chapter 11, or Home Depot type companies. Not Home Depot, but something along those lines. Something where they could restructure and then maybe become profitable again. Sharper Image, I think, did Chapter 11 at one point, right? So they're probably going to do Chapter 7. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like Chapter 7 because there's no way Chapter 11 is going to work.
Either reorganization or liquidation. Now, we're talking about personal bankruptcy. There's different chapters We're not talking about personal bankruptcy.
Right.
We're talking about corporate bankruptcy.
Yeah, commercial.
For personal bankruptcy, you might be familiar with that. There's also municipal bankruptcy, and there's other sorts of bankruptcies.
There's a bunch. There's a fuck ton of them
that are in the bankruptcy code. But in this specifically, there's two that would apply. Either Chapter 7 or Chapter 11.
Nowhere they're going to pull off 11.
Explain the difference. The difference is really between reorganization or liquidation. Chapter 11 is reorganization. This is for companies that have a chance. So you're saying
these guys are fucked.
of recovery and profitability. So if that company came...
So, for instance, if they had done maybe 6 months ago and started working on Chapter 11 6 months ago, they probably could have pulled it off. But they would have had to have all their talent be aware of what's going on. They would have, and assuming everyone just didn't jump ship then, right? So that's the big thing. But they shouldn't have taken on a fucking charity event either, knowing that they were basically at negative income. So I don't know what they were doing there. Aside from the obvious on purpose taking in charity income to use that as a float device, which is probably highly illegal.
Get back to making money, then it can be reorganized. And you can say, hey, look, let's restructure this. Let's, change the terms of some debt. Let's, maybe trim some fat off the company, and let's get this thing going. However, Chapter 7 is for those that realistically cannot reorganize or return to profitability.
Yep, that's the
Chapter 7 is way faster, cheaper, and handled in months versus years for Chapter 11. And in Chapter 7, a trustee takes over versus Chapter 11 with existing management. So looking at all these factors,
that's because in this case, existing management may or may not be going to prison for charity fraud.
It's very clear it's going to be Chapter 7. They're also a mainly service-oriented company. They don't have heavy in products or assets. And if you think about it, the only real assets, the big assets that a VTuber company would normally have are the models. And like it or not, I mean...
they don't even own the models in this case. So, like that was one of the few things they just don't even own. So that's weird.
At the end of the day, they are an asset. They could be sold to somebody to be skinwalked by some other person. Right. And of course, the VTuber community would absolutely not accept that. That's deplorable.
Okay. So I'm not part of VTubing as a whole. And I know a lot would absolutely get pissed off, but here's the thing. All the current fandoms or fans of that, it's the same for like a voice actor. Like when a voice actor changes in a TV show, everyone hates it because it's a new person. But if you wait long enough, most people will either move on to a different person entirely, or they'll just accept it. So he's right and he's wrong in this case. A lot of people would accept a new person, especially if they were just like Iron Mouse, probably not, right? Because Iron Mouse is a very specific type of VTuber. Very unique along the VTubing kind of sphere. But overall, though, a lot of people, I have to be careful with this because a lot of you guys who have been watching my channels are all really into VTubing, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just going from the way a voice actor kind of standpoint works, because a lot of VTubers, in essence, are voice actors. They really are in a lot of ways. Technically, you could consider any YouTuber a voice actor to a degree, especially on the faceless channels. But if you swap out different voices, people get really, really fucking pissed off for a short amount of time. And then they'll either accept it or they'll switch to a different channel. That's it. That's just one of the two options will happen. And all they need to do is outweigh. So basically, let's say 500,000 people from a 750,000 channel drop them and just unsubscribe, right? There's still 250,000 people who just don't give a shit. Which does happen, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that this would happen here, but the reality is it would be less likely to be profitable short term. But if you could outweigh it like 5 years, then maybe. I don't think it would be useful, though, because VTubers it'd be easier just to create a new personality entirely, right? So that's just my 2 cents. It's not like a beloved TV show character in season 3, their real life actor gets run over by a truck or something, and you need to swap it out with a new person because it's a commercial TV show. It's totally different for VTubers, at least currently. But I don't know about a few years from now when it becomes more and more mainstream, because over time VTubers are going to become more and more and more mainstream, and then a lot of them are going to be AI over time. And Neuro is not going to be the only VTuber that's AI. There definitely will be more of them over time, and they're going to keep getting better. Anyway, let's keep going.
In the general culture of the VTubing community, but technically, from a legal standpoint, it is an asset. Intellectual property right is an asset. So they could sell those assets. except for they don't own those
Right.
assets.
So that's the big thing with VShojo. They don't own any of them. They do own, I guess, rights to some of the commercial, not monetization stuff, the commercial like merchandising. But that's probably why they weren't making money, because they don't own these things.
Because the creators own their own IP, there really isn't much to sell. They probably don't own more than a couple of staplers and some desks. I mean, that's probably all they really have is some office stuff to liquidate. And that's probably...
They did have quite a bit of office stuff that they use at conventions, but that's not worth it for a reselling standpoint.
About it. They probably got a lot of liabilities, but nothing to really offset that in significant assets. They weren't investing in real estate. They didn't have any heavy machinery. There's nothing that they could actually, turn over and sell like a...
They probably just lost a shit ton of money in San Francisco to rent when they shouldn't have been doing that.
Fleet of trucks or cars. So what we're seeing here is going to be Chapter 7. It's going to be a liquidation. There's no way they're going to want to put the existing management, which has been a failure for the past years, and we're talking years, they've been failing in profitability. They're not going to say, hey, you guys can totally turn this around. We're going to give you a chance. There's no chance of that. I think the judge is going to look at it as this and say, nope.
You'd have to have some random lunatic with like $30 million come in and be like, I want to invest in this, which is possible. Just convince Elon, I guess.
It's definitely going to be Chapter 7. You guys are clearly down that lane. So let's go down the lane of Chapter 7. What's the process for that? So VShojo's got to submit a petition for bankruptcy. Now, we haven't seen this yet.
That may have already popped up. This is I went with just the first video for the fast facts that Legal Mindset has. There's more than a possibility. A lot of this stuff is already up and about.
As soon as this gets filed, I'm sure we're going to report in it. I'll report in it. I'll let you guys know. But we're going to see.
There's like 4 videos I'm skipping, or not skipping. I've just missed.
Submission of a petition for bankruptcy. When they submit that, they're going to also have to list all their assets, liabilities, their income, expenditures, contracts, leases. And this is going to be very interesting because that's when we're going to get the truth. How deep in financial hot water was VShojo? That is going to be a spicy.
I want to see that. I want to see that video.
People in the VTuber community, drop.
I want to see if I was right, and it was the initial $11 million plus that $2 million is closer to like $13 million, and they just hadn't paid any of that shit back. I also want to know if that $11 million was a gift versus a loan. So if it's a gift, then they might only be the $2 million in debt. If it was a loan, that might, which is why I think it was, that might be part of that $2 million, which is why I think it's just under $13 million. But yeah,
YouTubers and otherwise, everybody, right, is going to sink into and really analyze, and that's going to be an absolute bombshell to see exactly how bad they were performing over the past. And I think that's also instructive for future corporations to not have such ridiculous predictions for profitability. Now,
I think they could have had profitability if they just like structured everything to take a percentage of everything. It doesn't have to be a high percentage. YouTube, for instance, takes like 45% of every single video in ad revenue. That's insane. I think Twitch is like 30% or something like that. And then a lot of the other ones are like for like streaming services, like 10, 15, 20%. But either way, they're all taking a percentage. Even if they only took 5%, that would still probably make them profitable. And most creators probably would have stuck with them because even at something like 5%, that still gives you the backing of another company as well as an organization. But I just didn't understand their business model at all.
What would happen is after they do that list, they submit all the petition, they're going to get it turned over to a bankruptcy trustee. So the bankruptcy trustee is going to take control of everything. They're going to take all the assets, and their job is to liquidate those assets and distribute them to creditors. So taking anything they have of worth and distributing it.
But that's where I think there's going to be a problem, though, especially for all the talent. Luckily, the talent is most likely fine on their own, hopefully. But I think but if any of those talent needed any money, I think they're totally fucked right now because the independent contractor status for the most part, and the fact that they're going to have to pay back the loans first in most cases.
There's an order. At the top of the list are secured creditors. So anybody who has a secured loan or a mortgage, etc. And then there's
the venture capitalist company potentially
unsecured. And that's everybody else, including people like talents. Now, I did mention there is an exemption which might give them as prospective independent contractors priority status over other claims, that might be possible.
Yeah, that is possible, but it's less likely. And it might be like something in the area of they might be made like 10% whole versus like 100% whole.
Maybe possible they will cover some money.
Yes.
Maybe
is
However,
the big one.
It ain't going to be much. And it certainly won't be enough to satisfy all the obligations, particularly the massive charity obligation.
Yeah, that's the big one. I mean, okay, so upside, the charity re-raised $1.35 million. The downside is it's still missing $500,000.
So that's going to be something that's looming out there, and that's going to be something that the trustee is going to have to deal with. Now, another big question that people have asked is about NDAs. And I want to clarify this because I have said on certain media, etc.
NDAs are complicated in a lot of ways. Perfect example would be like looking at the NDAs for like the Illuminati and Oz Media case. They're not exactly very easy to sue under. And I've done a lot of like NDA type stuff for, contracting work, but like there's certain things that you can't say even like 4 years after working for a random company, or just because of how, the Slack accounts work. Like you could be talking about other stuff within other companies and to multiple companies, but you can't say certain things about other companies, even if you don't work for them anymore, but you did at one point. Some of those NDAs are fucking crazy that you sign.
That yes, the NDAs are going to be, at some point, they're going to be able to speak up. They're going to be able to talk. But there's some legal distinction here. And I want to be very clear because this is something that is kind of a legal, not a gray area, but it's the difference between the law technically and the practical reality.
Right. Followed also by whether or not a judge wants to enforce certain parts of it. So that's the other thing.
So in the law, technically, a bankruptcy only discharges financial obligations. And an NDA is a non-financial obligation. So it's an obligation of confidentiality. So technically, an NDA is not gotten rid of by bankruptcy. Bankruptcy does not void NDAs in and of itself. However,
if the company has no money and there's no reason anymore, they're not going to bother suing because they won't be able to afford the lawsuit in the first place.
It's practically either difficult or almost impossible to enforce NDAs afterwards. Certainly impracticable. Like you cannot actually, in reality and practice, go and enforce these things. Why? Well, first of all, the legal priority is given to satisfying the creditors, to satisfying the outstanding debts. It's not given to, hey, we're going to allow you all this funding. We're going to allow you to use all this money to go chase people down and enforce NDA.
Yeah, imagine be like, all right, you're in bankruptcy. Here's your $7 million of what we were able to liquidate. Go ahead and go sue whoever you want to force this company out of business. You know how insane that would be? I could see the American legal system allowing that, though. It's just a miracle that they don't.
That's not given a top priority on the list of things, particularly by the bankruptcy trustee. Further, it's just the lack of funds. They're not going to possess enough funds to enforce all these NDAs and go out and sue everybody.
And you're not going to like use your own funds for that shit in most cases. Although the company was that the Proven Locks might do that shit.
Mother and everybody and their mother is actually not a just tongue-in-cheek statement. They literally made Silver Veil's mother sign an NDA. We're going to talk about that
kind of random
on my next live.
What the hell why?
But those
I guess it depends on how old that person is.
NDAs, they're not going to have the funds. It costs money. It's not free to go enforce those NDAs. Also, the last thing is, this is something the court can take into effect, is that it's an unfair benefit to the company, particularly given the company's track record. Particularly given that the company was using the NDAs to silence people from speaking about legitimate workplace grievances. And I've already talked about the fact that certain law, like California law and other laws, may actually allow them to speak up on those NDAs, particularly.
Okay, so here's the thing, though. Yeah, that's true. And that's absolutely legal and true. Absolutely. But if you're in, a position where you're working, and here's an example. You're legally allowed to talk about pay. Whatever your pay is, you're legally allowed to discuss it with whoever you want in your company, whenever you want in your company, at all times. It's like at a federal level, no one can stop you from talking about pay. And they can. You cannot be fired for that at all. There's no retaliation that's legally allowed. None of that's allowed. Now, if you have a dumb manager, you will be fired, and that will be in your written firing notice, and then you can sue, and you will automatically basically win wrongful termination in any state for the most part. If you have a smart manager, they will wait 2 or 3 weeks and then fire you for something completely arbitrary that has nothing to do with that, and you'll never be able to fucking prove it. And that's what they'll just do. And there's plenty of people who will be like, if you can go on Reddit and be like, nah, I fire people all the time for that shit. And you're like, but it's illegal. So I don't give a shit. That's the thing. So no one's going to go fight something when they know they're going to potentially get fired, even if it's illegal.
As it relates to workplace grievances. That's completely separate.
A lot of people can't afford to be fired. Some people can. If you can afford to be fired, then it's the perfect time to do it.
From the bankruptcy process. So there may be ways for them, and there likely are ways for them to speak up about those NDAs despite the bankruptcy process, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, it would be wholly unjust to allow VShojo, which essentially kept them from making money for some of them up to a year, even more than a year. There's records of them not paying people back now and accounts of them not paying back in 2023, way back in the day. So they're not going to say, hey, look,
the moment I wouldn't have gotten any money for VShojo for more than a month, especially like if they had missed my paycheck one fucking time, I would be like, nope, I'm fucking done. What the hell is wrong with you guys? And they probably would have found a way to pay me specifically to keep me to stop. To shut the fuck up.
Allow you to keep, to silence these people in the fact that you screwed them out of money. You shafted them for multiple years and in a massive amount. I mean, we saw 2 million was that.
Especially when they were basically being required to continuously work effectively for free. As effectively maybe basically slave labor, because they kept working for free expecting to get paid, If you're not getting paid, why the hell are you going and doing streams and shit for them? Go do your own shit.
Amount projected there. Let's say that half of that is loans and half of that is talent. Say it's 1 million in loans and 1 million in talent. That's just me spitballing and guessing. Yeah, that doesn't look good. That does not look good with that amount of outstanding debt. So right. I do think there's going to be a point at which practically they'll be able to speak out. They'll be able to talk up. And I will caution all of the talents to consult with their individual lawyers.
Yeah, that's true. Always talk to your lawyer. Don't listen to random people on YouTube.
When their individual lawyer that is representing them, not me, but their lawyer representing them, tells them they can speak up, do it.
And make sure it's approved. Make sure what you're saying is approved by your lawyer.
Right, do it. When their lawyer tells them to do it. And I think that day will come sooner than later. So everyone, please be patient. Let the process play out. Let the legal process happen. The best thing you can do is to support your creators, and it's so lovely.
Oh, I assume there's a lot of people who are like, what happened? Can you tell us anything? Tell us everything. We'll go scorched earth on them for you. But, that would actually make it worse for their own case. Yeah.
That we had Iron Mouse breaking record. She's going to get to probably 1 million on her IDF fundraiser on
1.35 million, I think, and rising still. So, yeah, this video is a little...
Absolutely great. That thing shot up overnight, and we're seeing some silver lining to a very bad situation. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll catch you on the next.
Yeah, you should absolutely watch Legal Mindset stuff. It's really good stuff for the most part. I know there's some controversy with Legal Mindset for some other channel he has, but I don't care about that. I'm only here specifically for this. If there is something else going on with that channel, that's fine. You guys can go argue it there. But for the most part, I have no issues, at least for this type of stuff, with Legal Mindset's channel. Who knows? There's always some random dumbass drama on the internet. What else is new? All right, see ya.